Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to Podcasting for Real Estate Pros. I am amazed that you are just binging. You're taking action and you're moving forward because this is something that you really want to do. So today on episode 7, we're going to talk about naming your podcast, creating descriptions and artwork that are going to make it irresistible and clear. These are the main things. So many podcasters out there come up with these crazy, clever names, and you're like, what the heck is that even about? We want to avoid that. So here's the deal. Most real estate related podcasts sound kind of like a snooze fest before you even hit play. If your show name and artwork don't stop the scroll, no one's tuning in, no matter how good your content is. I am your host, Sue Willoughby, and today we're talking about your very first impressions, your podcast name, the description, and the cover art. These are all things that are going to be your brand, your handshake, the vibe check, and the welcome mat that is rolled out all in one. Let's make sure that yours actually gets people in the door and in their ears and gets you the listeners that you want to attract. The very first thing that we're going to talk about today is naming your podcast. Now, like I said, there's a lot of boring names out there. There's a lot of cutesy names out there, and people don't understand, what is this podcast even about? That's why I called this podcast Podcasting for Real Estate Pros. Simple, to the point. You see it, you know what it's about, and there's no guesswork. So like I said, your podcast name should do 2 things. It should tell people what the podcast is about, and it should make them want to click listen and subscribe and come back for more. But your first impression, think about if you have a listing, right? You're a listing agent and you have a listing. This is about creating curb appeal, okay? When somebody drives by your listing, they're like, wow, I need to go in and see that house. That is exactly what I've been looking for. Well, guess what? Your podcast needs to have curb appeal. So you've got 3 main approaches when you're coming up with the title. And here's the thing. I just want to say, please don't get hung up on creating the perfect title. I did that with my first podcast, and I podcrastinated for a really long time because I wanted the title to be just right. Well, guess what? I finally picked a name, and since then, about 50 episodes in, I rebranded the podcast to something much clearer and much more SEO friendly. So let's go back to what we're doing here. You've got 3 main approaches: literal and clear. So for example, the First Time Homebuyer Show, or the First Time Buyer Show, or Selling Homes with Sarah, or whatever your name is. The pros are, there's no confusion. It's clear, First Time Homebuyer Show, and Selling Homes with Sarah. Both very clear, no confusion on that. The cons are that it's kind of low personality. It's not real. It's just kind of bleh, right? Just kind of boring. But it is literal and it is clear, just like Podcasting for Real Estate Pros. It's no sexy, but it's specific and clear. Now, the second option is to have it personality driven. Keys and chaos. Okay. Now, to me, that's not super clear, but it's a little bit more personality driven and it speaks to a certain niche. What about houses, hustle, and heart? That's a little bit, there's a little bit of spice, a little bit of personality in both of those names. Now, I'm not saying that you should use either of those, but you kind of get the difference between Selling Homes with Sarah and Houses, Hustle, and Heart. So they're memorable and fun, but it's not quite as clear and it's a little bit more subtle. Like keys and chaos could mean keys to what? You don't know necessarily that it's the keys to your house. The chaos could be something completely different. So memorable and fun, but needs a little bit more clarity. It's a little bit more subtle. Another option is to make it more benefit focused. So move smarter or moving smarter, or it could be smarter relocation if that's what you want to focus on, or list to launch, sell for more. That's pretty clear, right? You're focusing on people who are selling their homes, and it's list to launch and sell for more. I kind of like that. It's got a good ring to it. It's also very clear. So it instantly positions your value that you're going to be providing in your show. It still needs a little backup clarity, maybe. The thing is, you don't want to choose a title that you have to explain every single time. And people are like, what was your show? What's the name of your show again? It just doesn't stick with them. So finding the right balance, and this is, quite honestly, this is when AI can come in. Sometimes hopping on board with ChatGPT can be a good thing, and sometimes it can create a little bit more confusion for you or keep you in the rat hole a little bit longer. So what's your best move? Try and pair two elements like fun and function, keys and confidence, a podcast for first-time homebuyers who want to do it right. So you can have the main name and then followed up with the tagline. So for example, like I said, keys and confidence. And then the subtitle is a podcast for first-time buyers who want to do it right. Now you can make that a little bit more concise if you want to, but I just kind of want you to start thinking along those lines. So for example, in my coaching business, my tagline for my coaching business, which is Willoughby Coaching, is Awaken a Life Worth Being. So that was the initial name for my coaching podcast, A Life Worth Being. Now, it definitely was subtle, but I just wanted to get something out there. So once again, I took imperfect action and I got my podcast out there. I got like 50 episodes in and I have a good following, but I wanted it to be more specific and more discoverable and really kind of hit the target. So I changed the name from A Life Worth Being to Midlife Strategies for Badass Women. Very specific, very punchy, and also very memorable. So, like I said, think of a description that is going to speak to your key audience, right? Your ideal clients that you want to attract, and then go from there. Think of it, as your podcast elevator pitch. The description is going to be your elevator pitch. So once you nail down a name, and I would say, maybe ask a couple of people, what do you think about this? Do some market research. You also want to make sure that you don't have a name that is similar to another podcast or exactly the same as another podcast, because that will just create a lot of confusion and maybe make somebody mad. You don't want to do that. So do your research all the way around. When you come up with a few titles, engage ChatGPT and say, can you do some deep research and see if these titles are out there, if they're being used, or do they make sense, and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of a good way. All right. So you've nailed it with the name of your podcast. Yeah, this is it. There's nobody else that has the same name, and it's just a super strong name. So you're great. You're golden on that. Now you're going to come up with your description, your podcast description. Once again, engage AI. Work with AI in a way that you don't want AI to write everything for you, but it will help you in your thought process. Okay. So once you nail your name, now you've got to come up with your description. Your description is going to go in your podcast content so that when somebody sees the podcast, they see your artwork, they like the title, they're going to click on it, and then they're going to get your description. Like, what is this podcast about? I want to know more because I've already been drawn in. So here's a formula that you can use. So think of this sentence, right? This podcast is for, and then enter your audience, who want to, and then solve a specific problem or reach a specific goal, right? You're going to fill in those blanks. Hosted by, your name goes here, and then make a credibility statement with your personality. Don't just be some bland, boring thing. And then each episode delivers, and then put in, what is the format and vibe to help whatever their outcome is. Here's an example of what I'm referring to. This podcast is for first-time homebuyers who want to stop overthinking and start making smart moves. Hosted by real estate coach Sue Willoughby, each episode cuts the fluff and gives you straight-up strategies, mindset shifts, and insider tips to help you buy with confidence. Short, sharp, no jargon. So once again, as you can see, we filled in the blanks, right? This podcast is for, and then you enter the audience. So in this example, this podcast is for first-time homebuyers who want to, and then you enter the specific problem, Stop overthinking and start making smart moves. Hosted by real estate coach, and then your name. And then each episode cuts the fluff and gives you straight up strategies, mindset shifts, and insider tips to help you buy with confidence. Easy peasy. People will tune in. Your ideal clients will find you. They love your cover art. They love the name. And then they're like, yeah, this is exactly what I'm looking for. Right to the point. Okay. Now, speaking of cover art, art that stops the scroll is really important. When you go to Apple Podcasts or whoever your favorite podcast player is, put in a topic, like put in real estate, do your research, and then look at all of the cover art that comes up. Now, keep in mind, it's a tiny little square. If you see cover art that is just a mishmash of stuff, or it's hard to read or whatever, you want the title to be the star. I know you want to put your pretty face up there, but you can put your pretty face up there, maybe make it a little bit smaller. The words or the title should be the star of the show in this case, because you want it to grab attention, have the font be a nice, strong font. Keep it simple. If you're going to use your face because it is your brand, please do so. But make sure that the title, because this is like a tiny little billboard on a crowded freeway, you want people's eyes to go boom right to your show. Use high contrast with colors for high impact. Make a statement. Bold fonts that are, readable at thumb size. So if you're using a little tiny font, people aren't going to be able to see it. And bonus points if you get a catchy tagline in there. The thing is, you don't want to make it too busy or too crowded or too many things going on, because it will not stand out. So look at the podcast covers that draw your eye in and then emulate that. Don't copy it exactly. You can also use Canva. It's a great tool, and look at some of their templates that they have for podcast cover art. Canva is a free resource, and then just create your own. It's really not difficult. So Canva will be your best friend. And you can also hire someone on like Fiverr or Upwork or something like that they can, create it for you. But honestly, if you have Canva and you know how to use it, or you hire somebody that knows how to use it, find some templates that you like that are clear, concise, bold, and then create your podcast art. Pretty easy. So here's some common mistakes. Once again, the jargon thing. Using insider terms that are going to confuse outsiders. You want to attract people that want to work with you because you are the expert. They're not the expert. So don't use insider words and jargon in your description, in your name, or in your artwork. Okay. Cramming too much into the artwork, like I said, don't make it too busy. Don't have your name and a slogan and everything in there. The title of the podcast, clear, simple, good colors, bold, grabbing people. The other thing is choosing a clever name that has nothing to do with your target listener, because if they don't understand, or if it's not something that they care about, they're not going to click. So just remember, clear is always going to override clever. Always. All right. We covered a lot of ground. So let's summarize and put a nice, neat bow on it. You've got one shot to make your impression and make someone say, oh, what's this? I want to know more. Your name, description, and the cover art are your podcast's storefront. Always make sure that, think about it. You're walking down the road and you're like, ooh, that little shop looks really cute. It's got a nice sign. It's got cool colors. I'm drawn in. Do the same thing. This is your podcast's storefront. Make it scroll stopping and have it make sense. So make it scroll stopping, make it make sense, and make it you. Bring out your personality, because people are going to be drawn in with all of these things. Come up with a winning combination. All right. You have a big assignment this week. Make sure you have your workbook handy and get started. Don't get bogged down in the details. Like I say, take imperfect action. Come up with a name. Get some help from ChatGPT to brainstorm. Get some beautiful cover art. and a good, solid, clear description. All right, let's get going. Next up, we're going to get behind the mic. I'm going to walk you through exactly how to record like a pro without turning your living room into a recording studio, unless, of course, that's what you want to do. And if you do, knock yourself out. So until then, just remember, you're not just branding a show, you're building a brand of trust, and that brand is you. I will see you next week in episode 8, Recording Like a Pro. Hey, future podcaster, quick heads up. This series comes with a free workbook to make your life way easier. So don't just listen, actually do the work. You can grab your free copy of the workbook today. The link is in the show notes.